of the Inland Off-Road Championship out at the Mariendal 250, which marked the penultimate round of the Championship Series for 2020, brings us now to the pointy end of the stick, the guys that were challenging for the wins in each of the categories. With the offending throttle cable problem they experienced in qualifying now sorted during the break before the start of the main race, it was all systems go. Slightly less nervous, Naldo was loving the outing in his new car and was getting more and more used to it and more confident with each passing kilometre. The pair started making their places up on loop number 1, but unsure of the fuel range, they decided to stop at the end of loop number 1 for a refuel. This cost them quite a bit of time in the DSP and against the opposition, who did not refuel, and they decided to rather play it safe for the first time out with the new car until they could feel things out and have an 100% guarantee that they'd make the end of the loop. They did put in the drive of the day though, coupled with their main rivals experiencing mechanical issues, to clinch first place in Class A and a very handy top 6 overall. Not bad for a first time out, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye on this crew for the future. They are gonna be players for 2020, believe it. As the afternoon and loop number 2 wore on, so did the track though. It was starting to get chewed up out there. First dust, then mud. Loop number 1 versus loop number 2. Tiance and James set off in a 3-car convoy separated by less than 1 second after the qualifying prologue. They soon dispatched with the other two and set a furious pace once they were in clean air. The muddy conditions on the second loop didn't seem to faze them either, and with their main rivals falling by the wayside one by one, they kept plugging away at the task at hand, staying out of trouble and looking good for a great result. And it finally happened. That elusive victory came at last, with their first win of the season coming at the penultimate round of the championship. With their main rivals recording a DNF, they have also put a huge dent in the points gap for the Class D championship, and with 1 round to go, anything can, and in off-road racing we say will happen. Congratulations to James and Tiance for finally getting that big win under their belt. May it be the first of many. For the G4 squad, with their closest rivals in the championship chase missing out on this event, Glenn and Craig wanted to run safe and not go out of their way to damage their car or their lead in the championship, with the season coming to a close very soon, which is a grueling marathon event out at Camille. Whilst they could not quite match the pace of the crews ahead of them, they put in a steady run to consolidate 4th place in Class G, and in so doing, also consolidated their place at the top of the Class Championship standings. Now, it was on to Camille to wrap up shop. Bumblebee was in good spirits this time around at the Mariendal 250. The Free State is absolute heaven for off-road championship racing. The side-by-sides in the G-Class did show incredible form in these changing weather conditions out at Mariendal. The G87 entry of Theo Erasmus and Edward Odendahl spent a great deal of the first loop in a battle for the lead with the G22. The lead changed hands a few times until G22 had a flat and needed to stop and change the flat tyre. Unfortunately, just before the end of the first loop, the same fate befell Theo and Edward, and they too lost the lead in the G-Class whilst changing the flat. Loop 2 proved a bit more challenging though, with fuel problems caused by a broken fuel pump as well as a broken drive belt put them out of the running for overall honours. But in the end, a 3rd place in Class G and overall was just reward for the elated pair who joined us in the closing rounds of the Inland Off-Road Championship, stepping away from their national racing duties and enjoying some hometown terrain and showing the locals what they can do in something that's not a tractor. This is Class G side-by-side racing, and this is Erasmus and Odendahl at their very best. So what of the G22 squad? Well, Michael and Jean de Beer in the M&J Motors Lichtenberg entry set off first in the main race after a great qualifying run, which gave them clear air early on. A furious dice for the lead ensued on the first of 2 laps, with the lead swapping hands a few times. The dice was eventually spoiled by their flat tyre, which needed changing. Brothers Michael and Jean tried hard to catch up, but lost too much time changing that flat tyre, so often the case in off-road racing. No further problems came their way, luckily, but in the end they had to settle for second place in Class G and second overall, which was, you have to admit, a stunning result, following on from their numbers of DNFs this season. Just to simply finish is great, but to finish with a high placing is something incredibly special. Once again, for the G22 squad, a good job done for Michael and Jean de Beer. There is only one way to ensure success, and that's to have no breakdowns, which could cost precious time to fix on the sideline or in the DSP, such as flat tires, for example. Soon after the start, the G1 Can-Am Motornetics entry of Werner and Leon Mostert gained second place from the De Beers in the G22, who had to stop and change one of those nasty flats. Later on, still in the first loop, a flat wheel befell the G87 entry, and the Mostert brothers inherited the lead without having to make a pass, certainly under race conditions at least. Pressure was on them now to retain the lead while staying out of trouble, and their efforts were aided by some new tyres in the form of the CST Apaches, which had some serious grip and performed faultlessly. An elated crew then crossed the finish line, first place, just as the heavens opened and the storm truly arrived and landed on the rest of the competitors who were still out there battling out for the final kilometers of the Mariendal 250. It would have been a huge relief for the Mosterts though. They have been carrying a lot of dark clouds around with them this year and a lot of bad luck. And even though the clouds delivered the rain out here in the Free State, for the Mosterts, they delivered the win that they badly needed just to get that confidence back where it needs to be. Here's a breakdown of the results coming in from the Mariendal 250, our penultimate round of the championship. The overalls in Class A go to Pieterse and Visa, with Kruger and Becker just behind them. In Class B's, it was Sifi and Arthur that took the win. No one else finished out of the B category. A DNF for Tony and Mike Gavea after only completing the first couple of kilometers. They'll have a lot of work to do on their car before they go to Camille for the final doubleheader. In the Class D's, great to see new winners this time around for Tion Statoy and James O'Mahony. And then in Class E, Johan Visser and Jerry Besson, strong ahead of Benerick and Piers Botma. For the Class F, all about father and son pairing, Aki and Jandre Kruger. And then the Class G's, all about Werner and Leon Mostert on top ahead of Michael and Jean de Beer. Two great drives coming out of the Class G's at the top of the pile. And in Class S, Yanni Visser and Donny Moret also having to step out early after that collision with the Caveas. All this action from the Mariendal 250 was brought to you by Ural Trucks and Fila Africa. Now we get ourselves ready for the final event on the calendar, the 4th and 5th of December, our marathon doubleheader event out at Camille for round number 6. It'll be where a lot of the championships are decided, and we can't wait to head on up there. We say cheers to Mariendal and the clouds of the Free State, and head to Camille.